Welcome back to RGR, folks. It is another live conversation. Well, live for us. You guys will see it on replay. But with me is Dan Harms, our film contributor over at Arrowhead. Guys, how are you, Dan?
I'm doing good. You know, these allergies are kicking my ass, as most of you probably found out in that last video, but I'm doing okay.
Hey, it gets me sometimes too. It just takes a little bit to make a big notice on the microphones. But I'm really intrigued because I thought that one came out really well, and I think it plays over into Mitch Schwartz had a birthday this week, and I think it's good that we should talk about him because of all the people on the Super Bowl roster. I mean, he's one of the older guys, and he's one that gets the least recognition. I know PFF is hugely in his court,
Yeah.
but I don't think that a lot of day in, day out Chiefs fans really recognize just how special it is to have him at that right tackle spot.
Yeah, and we all talk about how he's kind of a little bit underrated in the terms of, like you said, people don't really, they probably know his name, but they don't get exactly how important he is to the function of this offensive line. And I truly believe that if you take Mitchell Schwartz out of right tackle and put somebody else in there, like, this is not going to be anywhere near the offense that it currently is. You can run so many different things through Mitchell Schwartz, and you can always trust him to shut down pretty much anybody who's on his side. So it's such a luxury that you don't think about it, and then you're just like, oh yeah, Mitchell Schwartz, he's pretty good. But no, he's like an excellent right tackle, probably the second best right tackle in the NFL. You could probably argue he's the best.
Yeah, I mean, that makes you elite. Top two, I mean, even top three. Pro Bowls are about voting. I get that. All pros are a little bit different, but this is a key that I think has really been the stalwart. We all know about the interior of the Chiefs offensive line and how it's been up and down and where there's some weaknesses, but his partner in crime, his opposite bookend in Eric Fisher, I think gets a bad rap. I had somebody ask me the other night if he's a bust. And I don't know if that's a reaction to Mitch Schwartz being that good, that he maybe looks a little bit, behind the line. Eric Fisher's a good tackle.
Eric Fisher's a good tackle.
Right? So when you take a step back, and I know you've been watching Schwartz in particular, but just before we get to that part, take a step back. And when you think about Patrick Mahomes has been in the league 3 years. I don't think he can progress to this point if he doesn't have a pair of bookend tackles like he has that are, at the very minimum, very good. And Schwartz is elite.
Yeah, and it's funny because I've kind of been talking to some people in like Twitter, and there's the Draft Network's premium Slack kind of thing about overrated and underrated players. And you look at a guy like Eric Fisher, and I get a lot comes with being a number one draft pick. But when you think about where he is today and overcoming a lot of that early adversity that he faced in the beginning of his career, not exactly being an elite tackle, but we look at Eric Fisher, and he's not going to be a Mitchell Schwartz type, but he's a guy that can play down in and down out, and he's going to get beat sometimes by elite guys like Nick Bosa he did in the Super Bowl. Like, there's not much that he could have done differently against a guy like Nick Bosa. He's just that good. But if you think about how he came back, and after the bye week, the offensive line just kind of gelled. And I think a lot of it has to do with those bookends in Fisher and Schwartz. And those two, they played together so well. And he's come so far from being a number one draft pick and kind of taking a few steps back. And I get that in some people's eyes, that's like he's a bust. But no, he's definitely like an above average good tackle in the NFL. And that gets overlooked because he's a number one draft pick, I think.
Yeah, I mean, and it's about the pocket. It's about allowing Patrick to do what Patrick does, but it has to come from the ability to function within the offense. And that comes from having those tackles, like you said. And I just want to throw this picture up there of him because this is classic. This is the most important position in football if you're playing offense, is this guy right back here protecting the backside of this guy.
Yep.
And without him, I think that you couldn't be in a position right now to be looking at Mitchell Schwartz the way we have to look at Mitchell Schwartz, because if you didn't have Fisher, they might have been tempted to put Schwartz over on the other side.
That's entirely true, I think. And we saw what it looks like when you don't have Eric Fisher in there. Cam Irving came in, and I know that he gets a lot of crap for the way he played, but he played pretty decently for a backup left tackle. Left tackle tackle itself is very difficult to play. You're talking about guys that, for defensive ends are athletic. They can bend, they can move, they can do all these things. And Cam Erving is a replacement level player. And so you can see that drop off in talent level from an Eric Fisher to a Cam Erving. And then when he comes in, how you saw not so much happening in terms of sacks and pressures off the left side. So I think it's definitely an eye opener that people got to see this year that Eric Fisher's definitely a little bit better than he was probably perceived up until last year.
Yeah, I think that completely jives with what we see on the field and the outcomes that we see them achieve. So when you look at Schwartz in particular, now I always get asked how good he is. And there are variations, right? I mean, clearly he's elite in terms of level, but he's not a drive blocker. He's not a mauler in the run game. He is a guy that is a technician that uses his sets to combat specific aspects of the pass rushers he's facing. In fact, I think the only time that he gets in trouble is when he gets those very few guys that can go speed or go power. And I think that comes from a very unique skill set on the other side, but it's also a cerebral thing because you have to have not only the physical ability, but the mental ability to switch it up and not give anything away to Schwartz because he's so good at seeing what's coming.
Yeah, and I think that has a lot to do with what we saw, especially in the Super Bowl. He played a lot against D Ford and Eric Armstead. Yeah, I had that right. And D Ford is a speed rusher. He was on the team for 3 or 4 years. He knows him very well, so he didn't have to worry about any really power rush moves or trying to go inside because he's always going to try and bend around the corner and get underneath you. That's just what he does. And you could see the way he attacked a guy like Armstead, who's a little more versatile. He's not the most bendy or the most the fastest guy out there, but he's got some power too. And the way that he's able to work within the pass rush set is actually one of the more impressive things that I saw about him, because he can take speed and then power and move with both of these moves from a guy like Eric Armstead. And he does it so seamlessly you don't even know he's doing it. His hands move with him, his legs move. He's able to transfer power and absorb strength from the edge rushers and all do it within a couple of seconds. So I think that has a lot to do with, describing how good he is difficult for a lot of people because, like you said, he's not exactly going to take a guy and throw him to the side and just drive him all the way across the side of the field. But the way he is able to move within the pocket and make that right side either take the defender around or inside and give Mahomes, lanes to move in and move around in, and you can always count on him to make the right play and know where he is where he is in terms of between the blocker or the defender and the quarterback. He always knows exactly where he needs to be. And that's really what it comes down to, is having that elite level tackle, is knowing where you have to put yourself in between and move to allow the quarterback to make the best plays.
And when you look at him as a whole, in fact, let's do this because I want to play this game.
Okay.
Let's compare. What's your favorite aspect about how he gets his job done?
I think that the mental aspect of him, because being prepared as a tackle, you don't always know what a defender is going to do, especially because you guys like Von Miller, they have so many different ways they can attack you, but his ability to change how he's perceiving a block. For example, if Von Miller comes at him off the edge and he attacks him with power and he uses a little hop step that is something I found out in Howard Mudd's teaching tree, it just allows him to gain leverage. But then, because a lot of times Von Miller wants to attack with power and then go inside on you or go outside, he can use that and adapt his footwork. So when he does the little hop step, it gives him his leverage back, and then he moves his feet with him. So it's not so much the athleticism; it's just knowing and planning within the pass rush says itself. So I think being mentally prepared, knowing his opponents, like he's using all of his tape and being there within every pass rush set mentally is what impresses me the most.
It's funny that you say that too, because when a guy like Laurent Duvernay-Tardif, who went to medical school during his seasons, says that Schwartz is the smartest player he's ever met, that's saying something. So I get where you're going there. For me, it is the athleticism, because you can see him engage, and it's not straight up. The nature of being a tackle is playing somewhere between 20 and 35 degrees most of the time. It's the length that he has that helps him, but it's how quick and how perfect his feet are nearly always in the right spot, even when he's overcommitting to the inside with a long arm, or he's trying to get his chest turned around for Von Miller ducking underneath his first punch. It's the feet that lets him recover everything. And that's the thing that I end up watching the most when I watch him.
Yeah, and that goes really hand in hand with the hop step thing with his absorbing power. It's not easy to just take on a bull rush and just do this little hop step backwards and gain that leverage back, but he does it so seamlessly. And he's not the most athletic guy, but he makes you think he is by the way he attacks that position. It's really incredible to watch.
Yeah, I don't like him on the run. Don't get me wrong. I'm not calling him an athlete, but just that footwork piece of it. I mean, Dancing Bear is always overused, but parts of that are true because it's not about pivoting. When, especially like you're talking about the hop step, when you leave the ground, you're giving up all leverage completely until you hit the ground and reset. So it's a difficult proposition. I'm impressed that he does it. And honestly, I don't think they would have been able to get to this point in protecting Mahomes, especially giving Mahomes an edge to cut around if it wasn't for having Mitch Schwartz.
Yeah, and I think that him growing to trust that right side a lot in the playoffs is what helped them win the Super Bowl. You see a lot of the runs that he had were out to the right because Schwartz is either letting his guy run around him to backside or coming inside. He's able to take him whichever way he wants to, and that gives Mahomes a giant, area to run to for 5, 10 plus yards. So it's just that added aspect to now Mahomes as a weapon as it just is translates to Schwartz doing his job play in and play out.
I think it's interesting too that you put it that way because to me it translates to time. Because I think in the back of Mahomes' head, he understands that, like you said, he's either going to push a guy past him to the point where he's then again in position to wall off the backside. Or if a guy dives down inside, he's going to either pass him off to LDT or run him into the ground, which gives Patrick not just 5 or 10 yards, but 2.5 seconds.
Exactly.
I think that's the biggest key. But overall, happy birthday, Mitch. I'm pretty happy that he's here. I think you are too, right?
Oh, yeah. Man, he's such a good example for being just a guy that comes in, doesn't brag about his stuff too much, gets the job done, and moves on to the next game. He's just so good.
Pleasure to watch. And folks, I hope you enjoyed watching this one. Thanks for doing it. We're going to have more film for you. We're going to come back next time and have a conversation about the cornerbacks as well. That's all coming. Check out the rumors that I did just for fun because so many people are asking questions. If you guys dig that, we'll keep doing it. Like and subscribe, do all the things. Follow Dan Harms at @DHarms_19.
At D_Harms19. He's gonna eventually you're gonna get it right. It's okay.
This is why I name everything after my name because I can't remember anything. But that'll be me for today. But that's it. Thank you for watching us today, folks, and we'll catch up with you next time.